Macbeth is speaking throughout the soliloquy. He is moments away from murdering the king, and his thoughts are confused and troubled. His visions of the murder weapon, the dagger, become more graphic and twisted as he moves forward and he becomes more unhinged.
When did your scene take place?
My scene took place in Act 2, Scene 1, from lines 36 to 53. It's right after Lady Macbeth convinced Macbeth to kill Duncan, and Macbeth was going through his emotions. Does the passage reveal anything new about the character?
Yes, because Macbeth was previously confident about his actions, but now after Lady Macbeth presented him the option of killing Duncan, or rather the suggestion, he's very confused and there's a lot of turmoil within himself. So my element of form and style was literal imagery and symbolism. After reading the close reading, the things that popped out in my mind were, first of all, right here, dagger of the mind. So this popped out to me because it kind of hits Macbeth's senses, and it's not something he literally sees, it's something he imagines from the mind. The next one was heat oppressed brain, and what that means is like his brain is hallucinating. He's going through a lot in his life right now, and there's inner turmoil within him. That's why he's getting that what it says right there, heat oppressed brain. That's kind of it shows the turmoil within him. The next one is a sentence. It says, "Mine eyes are made the fools of the other senses." So again, he's talking about his senses, and that also symbolizes that his eyes aren't working as well as his other senses. So literally, he can't trust his eyes. He can't trust that sense anymore. One of the other ones were right here, blood. This is the last one, and this for me symbolizes that he doesn't have much choice. Like when he imagines the dagger with the blood on it, it shows him that he doesn't have a choice. Like he has to kill Duncan, and like that's the only way to go in order to move on.
So for my whole close reading, I'm doing figurative imagery as my form and style. The quote I'm using is in Act 2, Scene 1, where Macbeth is hallucinating about the dagger. So from the first line, is this a dagger which I see before me? This the first proof of figurative imagery, because he's seeing a dagger before him. The handle toward my hand, come let me clutch thee. I have thee not, and yet I thee still, which means what is handle pointing towards my hand, come let me hold you. The reason this is figurative imagery is because this is just the beginning of the text when he's seeing a dagger which he's not sure is real, when it's not real and he's trying to hold it but he can't because it's a fake, it's imagination, and that's the figurative image in this scene. When it says to feeling as to say, or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation proceeding from the heat oppressed brain, he's pretty much saying, um, isn't it possible to touch you as well as see you? Are you nothing more than a dagger created by the mind, a hallucination from my fevered brain, to be the exact translation. So, which means he he thinks that are you real or are you just a false creation from my mind, which is the case, and that's another example of false figurative imagery because the dagger is a false creation in his mind, which looks like the which looks as if it was real. The next line when it says, I see thee yet in form as palpable as which now I draw, it's pretty much referring to you look as real as a dagger I'm pulling out right now. So pretty much that means that the dagger that was in his pocket is the exact same dagger he's visualizing, which again proves that that figurative image is the dagger again. And when he says, "Mine eyes are made the fools of the other senses, or else worth all the rest, I see this still." He's saying my eyesight must either be the one sense that's not working, or else it's the only one that's working right, which is another form of figurative imagery because the figurative imagery has a hidden meaning to it. And yes, the dagger is fake, but it looks real, just like the one, and it's pointing towards his hand, which is pretty much saying that if this is meant for him to use his real dagger, which is a hidden image, hidden message in the figurative imagery, which is another example of figurative imagery. And on thy blade and dudgeon gouts of blood, which was not so before, there's no such thing. It is the bloody business which informs thus to mine eyes. Pretty much this whole line is, I can still see you, and I see blood splotches on your blade and handle that weren't there before. There's no dagger here. It's the murder I'm about to do that's making me think I see one. So so all these lines should be annotated because this is proving another form of figurative imagery because he is thinking that when he sees the blood splotches on the blood then and it's pointing towards Duncan, he pretty much knows that this figurative imagery is trying to tell him that when you see that dagger, just like my dagger, his dagger that's in his pocket, it's telling him to use that dagger to kill, which is the reason why he sees blood, and it's pretty much that's the hidden message in this, which is the figurative imagery. That's why he thinks it's the murder that he's about to do that's making him see all this.
The dagger is referred to throughout the scene in a variety of ways. Firstly, it is made out to be a fatal vision, an apparition that will seal Macbeth's fate. Then Macbeth calls the imaginary dagger as such, a dagger of the mind. One that is made up or a false creation. As Macbeth continues with his mission, the dagger now becomes an actual instrument, one that is a vital element of the impending murder, and finally, there is no need to further conceal what it really is. It is a blade, plain and simple. It is the weapon that will bring death to the king. Shakespeare develops a vision of confusion, doubt, and fear within Macbeth's mind, and we envision his brain, his heat-oppressed brain, as fevered and overpowering. Macbeth is so overly agitated that his thoughts, his overheated images meld together in his own burning inferno. This phrase creates a graphic vision of an unforgettable image. Macbeth is not only in a state of turmoil, but also one of denial. Mine eyes are made the fools of the other senses, or else worth all the rest. His desperate attempts to blame his visions of the dagger on his eyesight, that he may be only seeing things, only leads him to doubt his other senses and forces him to trust what he is seeing as an actual premonition. His hallucinations of the dagger become so realistic and graphic that Macbeth begins to lose his grasp on reality, finding it difficult to determine what he is imagining and what he is not. I see thee still, and on thee blade and dudgeon gouts of blood, which was not so before. Finally, Macbeth comes to a turning point, one of personal clarity, where he admits that he has only imagined the dagger and that it was the result of his impending intentions of murder. There's no such thing. It is the bloody business which informs thus to mine eyes. He believes that his ghoulish imaginings, prompted by evil witches, are only that, but unfortunately, His destined fate will condemn him to a nightmare that he will never be able to awaken from.
Explain how the elements in the passage all work to emphasize/build one central theme in the play. Connect your observations together to reach this conclusion.
So all those annotations I just talked about were obviously all from the form and style of figurative imagery. So all those elements of Macbeth hallucinating about the dagger, figuring out if it's real or not, um, and questioning, why is he seeing this? Why is it pointing towards his hand? And then why is it pointing towards Duncan? And then why is he seeing blood splotches? He pretty much recognized the hidden message was for him to kill Duncan, but he didn't know what he was doing at first when he first visualized it. So the elements all lead to the central theme of turmoil, or in other words, confusion, which was pretty much the trait that Macbeth was going through the entire scene that we were close reading. So the fact that Macbeth was questioning him, is this a dagger which I see in front of me, were all parts of confusion, and they're all elements from figurative imagery because he was seeing a fake image which he was confused about why he was seeing it. So explain how the elements in the passage all work to emphasize build one central theme in the play. Connect your observations together to reach this conclusion.
So my element was literal imagery and symbolism, and our central theme is turmoil. So literal imagery shows it connects to turmoil in several ways. So the first one is through his senses. So usually you can trust your senses, your hearing and your sight and everything, but for for Macbeth, he could not trust his sight. That's why he had that inner turmoil within himself. He was basically confused and he was betrayed by his own eyes. The other way that symbolism or my form and style connects to turmoil is through symbolism, which is when he says, "And on thy blade and dungeon gouts of blood, which was not so before." He's talking about how there's blood on the dagger and it wasn't there before, and this blood, it symbolizes his greed and his envy for killing Duncan and getting the power of the throne.
In Act 2, Scene 1 of Macbeth, Shakespeare effectively uses two forms of diction to create a sense of turmoil. Firstly, he uses repetition, as Macbeth sees the dagger over and over again, each time not sure whether the dagger is real or imaginary. Macbeth's torment is evident in his contradictory musings about the dagger. I have thee not, and yet I see thee still. Shakespeare also uses imagery when Macbeth refers to his troubled mind as his heat-oppressed brain, and essentially, Macbeth's inner turmoil is exposed to its greatest extent, stemming from the deepest and most dangerous recesses of a troubled and disturbed mind.